Here we go. It's the DC Sports Huddle presented by MGM National Harbor. For the latest in Washington sports, visit a sports fan's paradise. We're talking MGM National Harbor. I'm Dave Johnson along with Dave Preston with the coffee mug. George Wallace just got off the golf course, and Rob Woodfork, as always, he's color coordinated, I think.
Is that what that is?
Yeah. That's what that is.
Yeah.
All right, we got a lot to talk about this show, but I've got to get this off my chest right away. I'm flying back from Japan, and I'm paying for the bad internet on the airplane from 37,000 feet, and all of a sudden I see on, I think, social media, and they tell me sometimes social media can be deceptive.
If it's on, it's probably true, though.
I see a picture of Dan Snyder on the field with Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking,
that happened. That definitely happened.
I was shocked because he has no day-to-day involvement with the team. I'm surprised he even knew how to get to the stadium. I'm surprised he even knew that there was a game that day. He has had absolutely nothing to do with the day-to-day operations of the Commanders. He probably forgot their name.
But that's my point. Why, if he supposedly has nothing to do with the team, why is he on the field? When we go to this phrase, it all starts at the top. Mm-hmm. Why isn't somebody saying, Dan, Jerry might be your buddy, but this at this point is not a good look. Hang out with him in a suite, a corridor somewhere, but right on the field, and then they take a picture and put it on social media.
Yep.
So to me, it's saying this franchise has not changed, or it is deaf to what's going on around them.
It totally is. And here's the other thing. It could be a couple of things. Well, first of all, he's wearing a blue and white combination.
Right.
Okay?
It brings out his eyes.
Blue and white. Those are the cowboy colors. It also could be saying that, look, NFL, Jerry's my buddy. I'm not going anywhere. I'm in public with him. We were told that he has been at every game.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him at the home games.
Right. I guess he's not banned from games. I still think it's a bad look.
But the first time to show yourself in public on the field, but next to Jack. So does that make sense? Look, Jerry's my guy. I'm not going anywhere. As long as I'm cool with Jerry.
Yep. Right.
Jerry's one of the more prominent owners in the league, and for him to say, I'm standing by Dan Snyder, literally and figuratively, that sends a message to the other owners who are talking anonymously to the Post and other outlets and USA Today that, you know what, you might want Dan Snyder to be gone, but Jerry Jones wants him to stay in the room, and as long as Jerry wants Danny to stay, Danny's got a place at the table.
At least Tanya wore burgundy.
Yeah.
Right. And look, he's two easy wins for him every year, right?
Right.
Two easy wins for him every year.
Right. And
they started a third-string quarterback and still beat him by 2 touchdowns.
Maybe we've gotten to the reason why Jerry still wants him in the league.
Yeah.
At the same
1000%.
division, 2 wins in a row. But in all seriousness, my takeaway from this is I was starting to buy in that things had changed. Mm-hmm. And I really think that photo, as I'm looking at it on a flight back from Japan, I'm thinking, wait a minute, we're still in the same cul-de-sac. Mm-hmm. Don't you realize what's going on at this point? It's not a good look. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Friends, rivals for 24 years. Come here.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
That's not what that rivalry is supposed to be. That's not supposed to be a friendly rivalry.
So as good as guy as Ron Rivera is, it doesn't feel like it's changed. That was my takeaway, sudden feeling. You've always felt that way.
No, I have. And I just actually wrote this in my column on WTOP.com this week.
Check it out.
Check it out, please. I need the clicks. So, but no, man, there's 3 things that we were sold on. It was how good Ron Rivera is, and he could take the reins of this and bring it to prominence, and how they had the roster in place to be a contender, and how the ownership wasn't going to undermine that. Well, all 3 of those things have been proven wrong here over the course of the last several weeks. So, Ron Rivera, in terms of being a coach, does not have the resume that sort of speaks to him being able to take a franchise and lead it. It is exponentially difficult for somebody to be a general manager, and I know that's not his title, but he is in effect the lead football executive. You can't do that and be the head coach. Those are 2 inherently difficult jobs, and inevitably one of those roles is going to undermine the other. Ron Rivera, the coach, is going to undermine Ron Rivera, the GM, and vice versa. And if you look at this roster, and it's interesting because our friends at NBC Sports Washington just published something basically pointing out that their offensive line woes, it's not just about bad luck with injuries. It's also been they haven't retained the right guys. I mean, look at Trent Williams, and I know that was a situation that was way more complicated and difficult. But you had the best left tackle in the game. You had the best right guard in the game. And that was just a matter of, I didn't want to cut the check for the best right guard in the game because you don't traditionally pay for guards. But without Brandon Sheriff, they're 0-9 in the Rivera era.
11.
And then you tack on, and then you tack on the 1-3 start to this season.
Yeah.
And I hate giving a one-loss record to individual players, but that really speaks to, and both of those guys that I mentioned had the C on their chest. So I think that the offensive line woes, yes, a lot of it is hard luck with injuries, but there's a difference between having Trey Turner as your starting right guard at the beginning of the season and having Trey Turner as your starting right guard because somebody's hurt.
All right, George.
Yeah, he is the general manager, number one. Number two, we are right here now. We're heading downhill. This thing is almost
Heading, not there yet.
There's another layer.
I am talking about just being in the locker room, being around these guys. We are almost at the point where it is game over. And I'm talking whole new everything next year. Mm-hmm. I believe it. And if it doesn't go, we're not talking about, get off your point about the sheriff and everybody, but it gets kind of like it. He didn't address certain things this team needed in free agency. We keep talking about Carolina, guys. This is year 3 now. Forget Carolina.
Yeah.
Carolina's gone.
Right.
You're done with Carolina. And to this week, and to say that this doesn't get fixed overnight, when in the offseason he told us this is year 3, we're going to take that next step, to all of a sudden go.
He said that, we didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it is, we are very, very close, folks, to.
Well, no, yeah. The comments this week is that fixing is not happen overnight.
Right.
So suddenly we're not in a year where it's going to happen.
Right, but this
we're
is
in a
year 3.
Where,
it's not
yeah,
overnight.
I know. But now he's saying
There have been a lot of overnights.
We're in a, exactly.
But you can't
More
go.
than 1,000.
But you can't go. You can't go to where at this. We had a great off season and we had the team ready to go, and then we lose Chase Roulier. You're not blaming losing your starting center on the fact that you're
Right.
stinking up the joint.
Yeah, 3 centers in 3 weeks, though, is not a good
That's
one.
well,
Dave
that's-
Preston.
I think the fact that this team, they've just laid eggs in back-to-back weeks against NFC East foes. Even though it's only 6 of your 17 games now in the regular season, it speaks to who you are and your identity. If you don't do well against division foes, if you look as bad as they have the last 2 weeks, 18 points scored, they were shut out in the first half against Philadelphia, and it looked like they would be shut out for 7 halves if they had continued to play against the Eagles if it weren't for that safety. It doesn't look good, and it's tough to get excited about this team in any way. There have been teams that we've seen in years past where you could at least say, hey, Terry McLaurin's fun to watch. Well, 2 catches for 15 yards against Dallas. He was a non-entity for most of the game against Philadelphia. That's not all his fault. It's the fault of the offensive line that can't keep Carson Wentz upright. It's the fault of his offensive coordinator who doesn't get him involved early and often in games. As George said, things don't look good. Things could easily get to be really bad if they lay eggs against a Tennessee team that's won 2 straight and against a Chicago team that is scrappy and has beaten teams better than them so far this year.
Well, I think they're going to win again at some time. Maybe it'll be this week against the Titans. But I'll get back to my original thesis, and I was not trying to be silly. And I think Jason Wright was also on that field.
Yeah, he was.
Correct. In that picture.
In that picture.
So my point being is that I really was buying in that we're going into a new era, and then all of a sudden, with all that's going on, I see Dan Snyder for the first time with that beard since they announced the team name, and he's on the field with Jerry Jones, and they're tweeting it out on a Commander's account, and I'm thinking they just don't get it. And that makes me feel like this is going nowhere, and we're still in the cul-de-sac we've been in, and good people have come through here. Shanahan, a good person, Schottenheimer. We've had good people. It just you can't. That old cliche. It starts at the top. Just smacked me in the face when I saw Dan Snyder posing
and
with
that's the
Jerry
thing,
Jones.
and we've said it on here before. I think that they do have good people in place. I like Ron Rivera as a coach, but again, if he's also the de facto general manager, like he's brought in the wrong people from Carolina. I cited that in the column, was like he's, talking about Carolina. He references that a lot for a guy who never won a championship there. And then he brings in the wrong people. And, like Trey Turner. I mean, and I hate to pick on the guy because he's kind of banged up right now. But at the same time, it's like the guys that they've brought in from Carolina and Kyle Allen and some of these other guys, the guy that won MVP for you, and you guys laugh at me for the Cam Newton
there
thing.
We go.
But that's cheap. He's cheaper than Carson Wentz, is he not? And then the corner who's with the Eagles right now, whose name escapes me right now. That's another example of a guy who was with him in Carolina, who would have been a nice fit here.
Do you think that Ron is realizing, had this thought this week. You have a lot of thoughts when you lose 3 straight.
Yeah.
Do you think Ron is realizing
Got a lot of time to
that
daydream.
the top is not going to change and it's still who it is, and he's going to work his way out of town?
Hearing some of his quotes, or hearing him talk, the frustration, and it sounded more like not just the frustration from losing a game where you have more penalties than points. It was the frustration. All right, I've been banging my head against this, and I don't know where this is going. I sense that maybe I'm wrong.
So I'm not crazy. That could be something.
You're not crazy. All right,
I think every coach thinks that he can be a GM. Every cook thinks that he can go out and get the groceries, to quote Bill Parcells. Right. And I think Ron Rivera is realizing right now that, you know what? Yes, it's nice to be in charge, but gosh, I kind of maybe, especially with everything that's going on in his life, the cancer treatments that he was, and props to him for being a cancer survivor. But I think right now he's realizing maybe he took too big of a bite when he took the job, and it's like this. It's to overhaul a losing franchise, a franchise that hasn't won 11 games in what is now 30 years. That takes more than just someone who's coaching on the side, so to speak.
Yeah. And by the way, also when you're making a football trade, 2 of the hardest things is to get the player to be named later and the player whose name escapes me. So those are 2 players. All right, running out of time here.
James Bradbury is the name
James
that
Bradbury.
I
All
couldn't
right.
think of. Yes.
It must be that internet over the ocean.
Yeah, right.
I'm telling you that.
Wait, do we think they beat Tennessee though?
I think they do. I think they do.
Dave's like, who cares? Dave's like, who cares?
Who cares?
All right, that's a wrap.
I don't even think that's a question anymore. I'm just going to be looking to see who's on the field, and I don't even know what the
How about
order
the stands?
I think they beat Tennessee, but it's fool's gold. It's one of those games
That's what
where
I'm saying.
Tennessee it was hot, but then the NFL, you are engineered to go 8-8 unless you play in Landover, and then you're engineered to go 5-11.
And I think that's the frustrating part of where we are right now, is that right now this is the most parity we've seen in the NFL in a long time. Through 4 weeks, we have more games that have been decided by 3 points or fewer than there ever has been before coming into this year. And I think that you also look across the league in the standings. 15 of the 32 teams are 2-2. So, Washington right now is getting outscored 34 points, at the worst point differential in the league. So it's like they're not just losing, they're getting handled by teams.
Their game was the biggest point
All right, I'm getting the message in my headset. We're running out of time here. We
I like our new set. Do you like our new set?
No, I do. So I agree with Dave.
He has it implanted.
No, I'm telling you.
He does so much television.
I'm telling you that they're not going to go. They're not going to lose the rest of the games. And so yes, they're going to lose.
That's his prediction.
But I'm agreeing with you. I think it's a home game. Yeah. It's a chance they pull this one out. But I think
it's going to mean nothing because we're just. It's going to mean so if they
it's
win,
not going to help them in the tiebreakers because it's an AFC game.
Yeah, right.
So we got 2 games, two Commanders wins.
What if they only win the AFC games?
I think they win.
Now we're really. He doesn't.
I think they're going to luck into a win this week. Yes.
Yeah. Audible at the line of scrimmage. Maryland, the best team. We're not talking about football. Quickly.
I think so. I think it's a big game this Saturday against Purdue. They played probably their most complete game of the Mike Locksley era this past Saturday against the best opponent they've played a good game against. Talia Tagovailoa looks awesome in that pocket. There were some passes and some plays that he made where he looked like he was on a different speed than the other 21 guys who were on the field. So the sky is the limit for this Maryland team.
I love Mike Locksley's quote. If you're not on the bandwagon, don't call me. Right. Not gonna be, if you're not on now, don't call me. Hey, we're going to say goodnight to the year 18 or the Nats in town, 107 losses. And that's it. That's all we're saying about that.
Okay.
It's
all right.
so bad. It's so
Audible
bad.
to line of scrimmage.
All right, audible at the line of scrimmage. I heard a rumor, and I know we don't dealing rumors here, but I heard a rumor that Dave Johnson is calling his last DC United game on Sunday.
Right.
That was on the internet.
No, that
I think I read that somewhere.
No.
I think I read that somewhere.
Yeah, well, it's been an amazing 27 years.
That's a heck of a run, my friend.
And hope to still be involved with DC United somehow, and it's because the games go to Apple Plus, and it's a sign of where the league is going. A lot of exciting things are happening, but it's going to be an emotional day on Sunday. There's no
And
question
props to Mike Murillo and you to check out the piece on WTOP.com.
Yep. No, it's very nice. My audible, give it to the Orioles. 110 losses last year, 83 wins this year. And again, I loved General Manager Mike Elias's quote that all of a sudden they realized, hey, we're actually pretty good this
Hey,
year.
how
They
about
were
that?
so busy trying to fix this thing. They were like, wow, we've got a Rookie of the Year candidate, a Manager of the Year candidate. And so while we say goodnight to the Nationals, the Orioles give you hope. As I always say, when you get in trouble, when things go south, look north. Well, in this case, you look to Baltimore. And that's
If we could look, before we go, if we could look southwest, this weekend on WTOP.com, Presto's Picks, we look at the food that's being served at the Texas State Fair. Everything is fried at least twice.
That is the most Dave Preston thing I've ever heard.
No, time zone thing would be.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So we just got to delay a game penalty. That means that's the end of the DC Sports Huddle. In so many ways, that's the end. Dave Preston, George Wallace, Rob Woodfork, presented to you by MGM National Harbor. For the latest in Washington sports, visit a sports fan's paradise. It's MGM National Harbor. What did he just say?
I don't know. Break.